I had these super strong feelings that I was supposed to read the Book of Mormon. I don't really know what it was,
Hmm.
but it was like I'm supposed to read the Book of Mormon. I'm supposed to pray about it. And so that's what I did. And I just got this like overwhelming answer that I was like supposed to go to church that Sunday.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Latter day Believers. I'm Wilson. I'm going to be your host today. And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Ashlee, and she's coming to us from Canada. And she's going to be talking a little bit about her conversion story to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and to Jesus Christ. And we are super excited. Can't wait to hear about it. But before we get into that, Ashlee, could you maybe just give us a rundown of like who you are? Like, kind of introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'm Ashley. I'm 19 years old and I'm starting my first year of university pretty soon
Let's
here.
go.
Um,
Exciting.
I'm super excited. Um, I'm going into music program, so I want to be like a music teacher.
Hey,
That's what
that's awesome.
my goal. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, that's awesome. Which school are you going to?
The University of Lethbridge.
Nice. That sounds Canadian.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Okay, exciting. Ashley, could you kind of take us to where does your conversion to Christ really start?
Yeah, for sure. I think it really starts when I'm younger.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a Christian believing home. Like both
Mm-hmm.
my parents went to church while they like when they were growing up, and then when I was little, I also went to church. But then we kind of just like stopped going. There wasn't really a reason. I don't know, we just like stopped going, and then
Okay.
my parents like would send me to like these church camps every summer, and I would just be like kind of confused as like you send me to church camp, but then I don't go to church every Sunday, and it just kind of got confusing.
Understandably confusing. Yeah.
I was a little confused. So I started to ask a lot of questions when I got older, and I was kind of like, what do I believe? Like, do I believe in God? Do I believe, like, what do I really believe? And
Mm-hmm.
so then I started to do lots of research just on religions in general. So, um, like Judaism, like a lot of other branches of Christianity, like Islam, pretty much anything you can think of, I kind of just like did research on. And so one of the ones I did a lot of research on was this church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I
Mm-hmm.
was probably like 12 when I started doing
Wow.
research.
Okay.
I was
So
really
pretty
young.
early on. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I stumbled upon like lots of videos. Like actually one of the big things that I would watch was when Saints Unscripted was through Mormons. I did watch that a
Way
lot.
back in the day. That's a throwback right there.
Yeah, yeah, way back in the day. I learned a lot from watching those videos, like a lot of like basic church doctrine. I
Mm-hmm.
like learned a lot of things and I kind of understood like what the beliefs were. And then I kind of, yeah, I just kind of just like did research and then um, I never like thought I was ever gonna like join the church or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then a year ago, yeah, like almost exactly a year ago, I decided that I wanted to go to Peru on a volunteer trip.
Okay.
And so basically you like apply to go to a different country and you
Mm-hmm.
do like a program. So I applied to do it was like construction. So you like help
Mm-hmm.
paint schools or do different
Okay.
things like that
Yeah.
in and around the community. So I did that and I decided like you can pick how long you want to go for. So I decided to go for 3 weeks. And so I got there and I met this girl named Madeline, and she was from Utah.
Okay.
I was like thinking like, oh, maybe she's like Mormon, like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, like just all these things turning like,
Understandable. I can see the thought
yeah,
process there. Yeah.
yeah. So, but then she was like, yeah, she was talking about like, oh yeah, I got back from my mission, and she was talking about all these like church things, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, like she's a member, like for sure. I didn't actually ask her, kind of just knew.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we kind of like talked about, I don't know, just the church a little bit. And I told her about, I did all this research when I was little and blah, blah, blah. And so then one Sunday, there was this other lady in our program, and she was like super intrigued by the church. And she was like, I want to go to church with you.
Okay.
And so I wasn't planning on going. I was just like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then, like, literally like 30 minutes before we left for church that Sunday, I was like, actually, I want to come with you.
Okay.
So I did end up going with the two of them. So then I went with them. And then that Sunday, so I was in Peru, and all of the, like, everything was in Spanish because it was in Peru.
Of
And so,
course. Of course.
yeah,
Wait,
but
and
I
what
was like,
part of Peru is this? I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry.
oh, Lima, I was in
In
Lima.
Lima? Okay, that's cool. Sorry, keep going. My bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was in Lima, and anyways, my friend Madeline, she served her mission in Paraguay, so her Spanish was pretty good, and
Oh,
she
there
had
you
like
go.
just gotten back, so it was like pretty fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I speak a little bit of Spanish, but not nearly as fresh as hers was. So I
Okay.
like understood, but needed a little help. And then these two sisters came up to me at the end of the second hour, and they're like, "Hey, like, what are you doing here? Like, do you want to learn more about our church? Blah blah blah." And I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of thinking like, no, because I already know everything. I don't really care to learn more,
Uh-huh.
um, but then like by the end, I was like, actually, yeah, I'll give you my number. I would like to like read the Book of Mormon. I've never read it before.
Nice,
Um,
okay.
so I gave them my number and everything, and then later that week, I met them in a park, and then they did the whole restoration lesson, and they were um like, okay, this is who's Joseph Smith is, and this is the Book of Mormon, and we had a lesson, and do you have any questions? And I said, no, I don't. Okay, we'd encourage you to read the Book of Mormon, pray about it, ask if it, like, ask God if it's true.
And this is still in Peru?
Yes, we're still in Peru at this
Okay.
point. So then after that, I went to church one more time before I head back home to Canada. And so I go for the second time because they were like, "Oh, actually, you're gonna come to church?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll come to church." So I came to church for the second time. That one was a fast and testimony meeting, and so I got to see like what like a regular sacrament looked like, and then what a like fast and testimony looked like
Mm-hmm.
as well. It was kind of interesting. And so then after going to church those first few times, I like knew that like it just felt right. I
Yeah.
felt the spirit so strong, and I knew that is somewhere that I needed to be. And so like I told Madeline, I was like, when I go home, I'm like gonna start going to church,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I wanna like go to church every Sunday because like
Mm-hmm.
this is something I need in my life. And so then I get home, but I'm like all worried about telling my parents about like me like reading the Book of Mormon on this like Peru trip. And anyways, I kind of just decided that the church was a cult and I didn't want to have anything to do with it.
That's kind of a turnaround there.
Yeah, and I also thought this because I was dating this guy at the time, and
Uh-huh.
he was very like anti-church. He was like,
Really? Okay.
"I'm Mormon, you do this and that, we can't be together, blah blah blah." And
Okay.
I was like super like, okay, fine, I won't then because I want to be with you or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like these few months I got home, and I just kind of forgot about the church. I forgot about reading the Book of Mormon, everything I already learned when I was in Peru. And I was kind of like, okay, back to regular life. About 3 months later, so I got home in September. So like in the end of November kind of time frame, I had these super strong feelings that I was supposed to read the Book of Mormon. I like don't really know what it was,
Hmm.
but it was like I'm supposed to read the Book of Mormon. I'm supposed to pray about it. And so that's what I did. I read the Book of Mormon again. I like actually like sincerely prayed and was like, please tell me like if this book is true.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got this like overwhelming answer that I was like supposed to go to church that Sunday. Like I knew that I had to go back to church. But the thing is I didn't want to go alone. And so what I did was I put in a request to meet with missionaries, like in
Okay.
Canada.
Okay.
But nobody got back to me for like a whole,
Really?
yeah. And
Oh.
I was like, I need to go to church. Like I have to. Like the feelings were just so strong.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to come onto Christ. And I like looked up like my nearest meeting house
Mm-hmm.
and like nearest time, like the sacrament meeting time and everything. And I was like, you know what? If no one's gonna get back to me, I'm just gonna go to church on my own.
Wow.
So that's
Respect.
what I did. I did that. I woke up that Sunday. I got ready for 9 a.m. church. I drove myself to the church building.
Man.
I was very nervous because, like, last time I had my friend with me. This time I don't know anyone.
Mhm.
I was like, "Ah, maybe I should just like drive away." But something told me, no, I shouldn't drive away. So I got out of my car, started walking towards the building, and I eventually sat in the chapel. And I was like super nervous, but it was like it just felt right where I was. It just felt right. But then I guess I didn't meet the missionaries until like the second end of second hour. They were kind of oblivious to everything. So actually like a member, he like introduced me to the missionaries. They're like, "Oh, this is our friend Ashley and she wants to learn more about the church, blah blah blah." And so I was, yeah. So anyways, then that night I had a lesson with these elders, and I kind of talked about like the restoration and kind of got to know
Mhm.
a little bit. And so this was a family ward. And so they were like, "Oh, we have some YSA sisters that we want to pass you off to." So like a little bit later, I met these sisters
Okay.
that were in the YSA ward. And so an interesting thing that happened kind of between that is um, there is this guy that I was going to like these like music classes with. I was doing like a music class with him,
Mhm.
and I was like scrolling on Instagram, and like I found out he was a member, but I had literally like no clue.
Really?
Like, yeah, it like I found a post. It was like, "Oh, 1 year since I was baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints," and I was just kind of
Huh.
like, "What? Like, this is crazy!" Like,
Yeah, what a coincidence.
I had no idea he was a member. So I immediately like texted him, and I was like, "Hey, like, can you tell me like everything about your experience? Like, tell me like how, like what happened during baptism, like learning about the church, like everything. I want to know it
Mhm.
all."
Yeah.
So then, funny enough, when I met the YSA sisters, I told them exactly what happened with like I said, "Oh, I have a friend that's a member of the church," because I just found out.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh, does like is his name Matthew?" And I said, "Yes, it is. It's this that's the guy." Yeah, and I
Man.
was like, "That's crazy." I had no idea that he was at that ward because he lived in a different part of the city, so I was
Huh.
assuming that he had gone to a different
Yeah.
ward. So I was like, I was just shocked. I was like, "What? You know him too?" And so he ended up being a very like big part of like towards baptism. He came to all my lessons. We
Wow.
became very close. And then so I guess 3 weeks, 3 or 4, like pretty much like 4 weeks after I started meeting with the missionaries again, I I got baptized. I said, "Yes, I want to get
3 or 4
baptized."
weeks after.
Yeah, very
Wow.
quickly after. I um they're like, "Who do you want you to baptize you?" And I said, "I want Matthew to baptize me." So Matthew baptized me, and now we're actually dating. So that's the crazy thing.
Wow, you and Matthew?
Yeah, we're
Oh my
dating
gosh.
now. So yeah, it's
That is
crazy.
awesome.
But yeah, it's been about 8 months since I was baptized now.
Wow.
So that's like how it all happened.
Well, I mean, that's a fantastic story. That is so cool. So, Ashley, as you're kind of going throughout this journey, right? If you're trying to like, find your way back to the church after having that experience in Peru, were there any like certain experiences that you had or things that you were experiencing that really kind of like kickstarted this desire to go back to church?
Yeah, so I had like previous like 2 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
I had I'd graduated high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I had like been really struggling with my mental health.
Okay.
It's like yeah, there's like a lot of things going on with me, and I did go to university like once 2 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
then got my parents pulled me out of school because I was just not mentally kind
Yeah.
of in that mind frame, like that frame of mind to be like going to school. And so I had to take like a few years off to kind of like really figure out like what to do. And so during that time I kind of like I just would always feel kind of down. But when I went to Peru and I went to church with Madeline and I experienced that, I kind of like that's the first time I really felt like good in such a long time that I wanted
Uh-huh.
to keep that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went home and after the 3 months and I decided to go back to church, I just was like, I knew it felt right because I was struggling with my mental health and I just knew that it was something that was good for me.
So since a lot of this has gone down, well, I guess like as leading up to that, was there any kind of like initial opposition or anything that really kind of like kept you from really wanting to make this decision to be baptized?
Yeah, well, I was dating this guy and I was like kind of we weren't dating at the time really,
Mm-hmm.
but we were still like talking kind of.
Yeah.
He was just kind of making my life really hard just in general, like not just
Mm-hmm.
about the church, but just like about my life in general. And
Okay, and he was pretty negative towards the church.
yeah, and he was like negative towards the church, and then I was all worried about my parents
Mm-hmm.
and what my other family members would think, just because a lot of them are like atheists and they don't believe in God, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, if I decide to get baptized, like what's that going to do with my relationship with my family?
Yeah.
And so basically, I just remember that my parents were actually pretty on board. They were like, "Hey, Ashley, we want to have the sisters over for dinner so we can learn more
Hey,
about the."
that's
So
awesome.
we actually had the sisters over for dinner,
Hey, props to
and
them. That's really cool.
yeah, and they were like, they asked all these questions about the
Mm-hmm.
church, and they felt a lot better about like what I was going into, and so I was really grateful for that. And so basically, yeah, I with this like guy, I kind of just was like, I don't care what you say, and I just did what I did
I'm just gonna move
because
on.
it was like for me, not for anyone else. And so
Yeah.
kind of said, if you aren't okay with this, then that's your problem. So
Hey,
yeah,
respect. And
yeah,
you moved on and it worked out, is what it sounded like to me.
yeah.
Since you have become a member, or I guess during this entire process, this entire journey, have there been any specific pieces of doctrine, any specific gospel principles that have really stuck out to you and that have really been, I don't know, like a source of strength for you at all?
I think because when I was growing up, I would go to church and it was almost like just a Sunday thing. It was
Mm-hmm.
like you just go
Yeah.
to church on Sunday. But I think I really like the gospel because, it's like it's a part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Every day you do things to come closer to your Savior. And so it's not just like, okay, on Sunday I do my religion and then the rest of the week is just normal
Yeah.
life.
Just do your, yeah.
So I really like that because it's like a super routine for me. Like I wake up and I say my prayers and I read my scriptures and I like make sure that I portray myself like as someone that is a follower of Jesus Christ every day of my life, and it's not just like, oh, on Sunday I do this, on Sunday it's like an everyday thing.
Mm-hmm. I really love that. I feel like there's like some deep gospel principles that run there, where a lot of like our faith builds line upon line. So it's tough whenever we're just kind of like hitting it like once a week on Sundays, because it's like I feel like it's tough for faith to grow like that. But when we're like putting in that consistent effort, like what you're talking about, that growth comes so much more naturally and so much more exponentially. Like I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, kind of one part of your story that really kind of stuck out to me that I thought was cool was whenever you're like, right, you're back in Canada and you're like on the fence, you feel like you really want to go back to church, but it's like it can be intimidating, right? Especially whenever you may not know people there, you may not know the missionaries, that kind of thing. Like, what, I don't know, I guess, what kind of advice would you have for somebody who's in that situation to kind of help them get that last push to go?
I would say like for me what really helped was like saying a prayer. Like I
Hmm.
prayed and I was kind of like, Heavenly Father, like please help me to feel the same like sense of like comfort as I did when I was in Peru. And after I said that prayer and after I went, felt so much better because I knew that like the church is literally the same everywhere you go in the world, and that is something that's like so unique and cool. Um, and I just really think that like yeah, praying really helped me, and just knowing that like what I learned in Peru is gonna be the same wherever else I go in the world. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Ashley, I'm just curious, if you were to talk to somebody right now who was investigating the church and was really like on this journey of coming to Christ, what would you say to them?
I would say that the first time you go to church, like you may enjoy it and everything, but there may be moments like it may not go smoothly, I guess, because for me, I thought it was gonna be a smooth journey, but it
Hmm.
ended up being like, okay, I met the missionaries. I didn't do anything for 3 months, and then I eventually met the missionaries again. So I just would
Hmm.
say that you should be like persistent. If like, is this something you want? Sometimes there's gonna be like roadblocks in your map, in your journey, but you'll eventually get somewhere. So I know that God will lead you there.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing a little bit about your conversion story. I mean, personally, like, I feel like I learned a lot and I felt the spirit and I've just been touched by the light that you have. So thank you. Thank you for being willing to share that. And thanks to you guys for spending a little bit of time with us today. If you have any thoughts or comments on Ashlee's story, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. We have a link that will take you to an entire playlist of conversion stories like these here on Latter Day Believers. So please feel free to check that out. And I think that's all we have for you guys today. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.